Another update on the CB500 RS rebuild. As you can see, I've got the barrel on. Well, it's only slid on. It's not bolted down just yet. The piston is in place. Didn't have too much trouble really sliding the barrel down over the rings. Just was very careful. Put a film of oil around everything. Got the cam chain secured. Piece of wire. But looks very shiny. So I've got to bolt it down. You've got one stud there, and then the other stud is under there. I don't know if you can see that. It's just there. So that basically bolts the barrel down to the top crankcase. Obviously, when the head goes on and you torque it down with the studs, that also obviously compresses the barrel down as well. But these are just more like, I suppose you could call them barrel steadies, I suppose, barrel stays, just to give it a helping hand. But I'm going to get on with that now. Right, well, that's the barrel bolted down. You can see there's one of the nuts there, and if I walk around the engine, it has two 6mm bolts there, and if I carry on round to the front, there's the front nut there. So that's the barrel bolted down. I put the chain tensioner in place. It's held with a nut there that secures the back of the tensioner. But once the head goes on, you have to. It's a spring-loaded device. Once the head's on and the chain is all in position, you loosen both of them. It tensions the chain, or you loosen one of them. You tension the chain. It automatically tensions the chain, and then you tighten it back up again. So I'll deal with that when the head's on. But I wish I could show you the piston going up and down, but it's very difficult to do it because you have to make sure you've got hold of the cam chain without it dropping into the down into the crankcase. But at the same time, it's a bit fiddly. But if I hold onto the chain and move the kickstart, you can see the piston going up and down. There we go. A bit wobbly. I'm trying to hold it, move it all at the same time, get it to the top. There we go. So you have to make sure the chain doesn't disappear back. Like that. I've got a bit of wire that I secure it with. Oops. So I'll do that now. So that's the first stage of actually getting the top end back on. Look at that, it wants to disappear each time. Alright, I'll do that now. So once the when the head goes back on, or when the head gasket and the head goes on, I'll do some more filming then. Right, well, that's the cylinder head on and all torqued down. You've got the four main studs there and there, and then there's another. You see a nut under there, and another one at the front. The manual says to torque it 16 to 20 foot-pounds. But because of the extra compression from the high compression piston, I went straight to the 20 foot-pounds. I never know whether to give it a little bit extra. I assume the manufacturers, when they say 16 to 20, that's probably more than enough anyway, but you can't help yourself, you have to give it just that little bit extra. But it's starting to take shape now. All it needs now is the camshaft and the rocker box. I'm using a screwdriver there just to keep the chain up. so that it doesn't drop down into the crankcase. You probably can't make out. Oh, there's the top of the cam chain tensioner, and that's the cam chain guide. You have to pull the when you fit it, you have to pull the cam chain tensioner up, and then you lock it in position. One of these nuts here on the back. It's held in two different places. One locates the actual tensioner. I think it's that one, and then that one is the adjustment. But you do the final adjustment when the engine's running. But I don't know if I can actually, because I'm turning the thing over on the kickstart. See the chain. So spinning the chain around there, and down there's my freshly helicoiled spark plug hole. I was going to fit put a compression tester, screw it in there, and then try and turn the engine over. But I think mounting it on a trusty Black & Decker workmate there, I think trying to move that using the kickstart and get an accurate reading of compression is probably a bit difficult. So I don't think I'll bother. I'll wait till it's in the actual bike itself. At least it's bolted in firmly. But yeah, so next step, fit the camshaft and the sprocket obviously on the end, get the rocker cover on, get it timed up. Well, I'll obviously get it timed up first, and then put the rocker cover on, and then it's almost ready to go back in the frame. So there's a couple of little adjustments I want to do when it goes in the frame, because the engine, the 500 engine, obviously, as it being 500cc, the bottom end of the engine is the same as the 250, but obviously the cylinder and the cylinder head is bigger and higher, and so it does come very close to the underside of the tank. So I was wondering that when I fit it, this is just an idea. You've got the rear mounting holes here, and down there and there, and then the front of the engine is held in with this thing here, which bolts there. So I'm wondering, is it possible to lower the engine by maybe slotting these holes here and here, and then these four at the back, just slotting them by, only needs to be 3 or 4 mil front and back, and so the whole engine will just sit lower in the frame, which will then give me a bit more clearance at the top ends, where it fits under the tank, up inside the tank, because it is very close, and I just wondered whether to lower the engine in the frame just slightly would help things, help with a bit of clearance, because I have to move. There are certain things, because of the limited clearance, I have to move things like the decompression cable. Comes from here, that comes up and then goes over the top of the rocker cover, but where it lies on the rocker cover, it touches the underside of the fuel tank, so I actually have to change the angle at which the cable comes up at, and I'm hoping that by lowering the engine slightly I won't have to do that. That will still give me clearance for the underside of the fuel tank. But that's for when it's in. That's for something to think about when it goes back in. Right, so Here's the engine fitted into the frame. Done all the necessary bits to finish the top end, set the valve clearances and everything. Fitted the engine in, doesn't take very long. I mentioned about slotting the holes in the frame here, down here, to lower the engine in the frame. I've done that, and I can show you how successful it's been. I've got it in a position where it was before. I've got a scissor jack underneath, so it's all in place, and this was the sort of clearance I had before. You can make that out. Now if I unwind the scissor jack, the engine will move down to the bottom of the slots, and there you can see how much clearance I have now. I know it doesn't look much, and obviously I don't want it to be a huge amount anyway, but you can see the gap there. Push that down there. You can see the gap there, and that's all on the movement of these bolts here and these ones here, and it just lowers the engine in the frame slightly, just to give me a little bit more clearance for the underside of the tank. The main problem, just move the bike over. The main problem was this area here. This is the decompression cable, automatic decompression cable. And when you kickstart the thing, move the camera around, you can see that lever moving. Right, so you definitely need an automatic decompression cable fitted to the 500, otherwise you'll never be able to start it. But this would foul the underside of the tank. So I dished, you can see in some of my earlier videos where I've actually dished in the underneath of the tank, and that worked. It did give me the clearance, but I just felt that lowering the engine slightly would just, for peace of mind really, just sort of give me that little bit extra. This one's a 250 engine, an XL 250. You can see the height of the bracket for the decompression cable. See that? See how high it is. And of course with a 250 engine, because it's that much lower, the gap above the engine is obviously a lot greater, so you don't have to worry about things like that. But with the 500, because the engine's so much taller, you do have to make a few modifications to give you the clearance. Also, this screw here I've changed from a normal hex head bolt head to a countersunk screw again, and I just countersunk the rocker box there. Again, it just gives me that little bit extra clearance. So hopefully by lowering the engine, it's probably only about 3 or 4 mil, it just gives me that little bit extra there, and it stops it from touching the underneath of the tank. Also, to give me a bit more clearance, I've modified the tank mounting rubbers, and you can, if you can see, I can turn that rubber and it drops down, and then I can raise it up. It basically will just raise the tank slightly, again just to give me that little bit extra clearance, so I won't get the sound I was getting before. The vibration was coming up through the fuel tank. So once the carburetor and everything's on, I'll do a bit more.